Welcome, everybody, to the Sports Hub Underground. Matt Dolloff here with Ty Anderson, as we are every single episode. You can get every episode at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And you can, of course, get every episode at 985thesportshub.com and the Sports Hub app. This is a remote episode today. So if you're listening on audio, but you prefer to check us out on YouTube, you can pop on over there. You might notice I'm not speaking into a microphone. Apparently, my microphone is dying. So we were just ready to get going, but Ty informed me that I sounded like I'm underwater. I said, no, Ty, you're crazy. I'm going to go prove you wrong. And then I go listen back to the test recording, and it is exactly what Ty was saying. So I have to basically talk on speakerphone. It feels a little weird. It doesn't feel like I'm actually talking to anybody. But I do have Ty Anderson on the other end. Ty, are you there?
Hello. How
Hi.
are you doing today?
I mean, my microphone's seen better days. I guess I've seen better days, but I'm ready to get talking about the local hockey club. I feel like there's been maybe a shortage of Bruins talk lately because the Patriots are so good, and the Celtics haven't been great, but the Bruins they were so bad for a few games. They lost 6 games in a row that I feel like a lot of people may have stopped paying attention or lost interest, and that's unfortunate because they have now won, I believe, 4 in a row, 5 of 6. They're back over 500. They're in third in the Atlantic Division. I don't know how sustainable that is because you look at the standings. We got Montreal and Detroit 1 and 2 in the division, and look, those they have some young talent, so maybe they are actually on the come. But we got Toronto in a wild card spot. We got Tampa below the wild card. We got Florida Panthers in last place in the Eastern Conference right now. So I know that the Panthers have obviously had those major injuries, so I don't know how sustainable the current situation is. The Panthers are probably going to figure it out eventually. I expect Tampa to get back in the playoff mix. I expect Toronto to rise back up. I think Montreal and Detroit could maybe be real, but I don't know. How much do you think this recent run by the Bruins, who are now 8-7 through 15 games, like how real is this run? Like how sustainable do you think it is that maybe not necessarily third place in the division, but in that third place division wild card run, like this is where we thought they could be floating around for the season. So I don't know. Do you think this is real, or do you think maybe this is kind of fool's gold and we're going to see them, drop back down?
Yeah, I think it's as real as anybody else in the conference, which is a fancy way, Matt, of saying talk to me in a month, because there's a lot of weird things that are happening right now in the Eastern Conference. You mentioned Florida, you mentioned Tampa. I'll throw the Rangers in there as well, a team that hasn't won at home this year through 6 games, I believe it is now. So a lot of weird things are happening. Toronto doesn't look good. They make a comeback and they salvage the game the other night there, but they weren't looking good for a while there. And so it's really just a unique division, unique conference right now in that respect. Like Montreal might be good. This might be for real with them, but I don't know. I got to see more of it. I got to see them. I got to watch more of their games to know what kind of team they're throwing out there every night. Detroit, is it finally coming together for them? You have to kind of see. I remember last year, they were being carried last year by a really great power play for a pretty long time. And so I want to see more of them and see, have they found ways to score in a more sustainable, consistent fashion? I'd wonder about that. And so, I think that they are as real as they can be right now. I think, you lose 6 games in a row and you win 4 games in a row and you've won now. I think you've won 5 out of 6 since ending that losing streak. So
Yes.
Like you're a team of waves right now. It's a high highs and low lows. And so if you can balance that out, you're going to be a bit more real, I would think. But I think these last 2 games, maybe 3 games, have been their desired identity, limiting shots, tight defense, aggressives, checking hard in all 3 zones. Like that's the Bruins team that I think we were sold was going to be the team. Right. And so if they can still be that team and they're winning, I mean, then it becomes real, right? Like you're winning with your desired identity. And so, the sample size is still pretty small, but this is where it's going to get real in the sense that they're finally out of that opening season death march of 14 games in 25 days. They're going to be able to practice more now. They're going to have a more human schedule. It's still compressed, but it's not that bad, like it was
A
the first
human
month of the
style,
season.
a
Yeah.
human style schedule is coming their way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
no, it feels like a
I think
never ending.
last night started like a stretch of like 13-27 or 13-28. Like that's
That's
way more
normal.
manageable than 14-25.
Yeah, of course. Like every other day, I suppose that's more or less normal because you have 4 games one week, you got 3 games the next week. That's relatively normal. Like not go play professional hockey 3 out of 4 nights. That doesn't feel sustainable for any team not let
Especially,
alone to do it all, let alone play well.
yeah, and to do it the way they want to do it, which is blocking shots, playing aggressive, physically, like all of that. Like it's gonna be hard, right? And then if it's not going well, right, and you got to get back on the practice sheet. Okay, well, when are you doing that? Because like you don't have a lot of practice time when you're playing that many games, and so I think patience was something that I talked to Marco Sturm about this the other day, and he's like, you're right. He's like, because it's hard to get practice and it's hard to get too bogged down or too in the weeds on struggles when you might realize, okay, fatigue is playing a factor here and we're going to be okay. We just got to survive this next little run here. And that's kind of, I think, how they approach that grind, and they break even 7-7. I would argue they should be better. I think they've left points on the table, but they weren't 4-10, which could have killed them. 7 and
Right.
7. That's about where you got to be if you're gonna, hang, so to speak, in the playoff picture.
So they've cut down on the high danger chances against them the last couple games. So I think it's no coincidence that they've been better, just straight up keeping the puck out of the net, preventing those quality chances, made life easier for the goaltenders. I thought, Swayman had a really good game against Carolina. And then he was pretty good last night down the stretch run against the Islanders. So I think that's been key to the whole thing. But yeah, the 4-game win streak tie, there's no coincidence that it's happened right when Hampus Lindholm gets back in the lineup. And so I think he deserves credit because I feel like I don't know what it is with Lindholm. People act like he is sort of a negative for the team or like he hurts the team or he's not that good. I think he's a really good player. Like, I get it. He's not the captain. He's not going to be your number one guy, maybe not even a top pairing guy necessarily, unless you're pairing him with a superstar captain type defenseman.
Mm-hmm.
But he's a solid defenseman, solid in his own end. He sort of calms things down for the most part, unless you're going up against a particular matchup against maybe Florida, and they have guys that can forecheck and push them around physically a little more. But as far as getting the breakouts going and just keeping things calm and keeping things tight and being able to check tightly and get a good breakout going. Like he makes a difference in those areas, and I feel like it's no coincidence that they have started to limit the shots and they've been a little better in their own end. It's been a little less chaotic in their own end over the last few games because they have Hampus Lindholm back, and I think it's just you go back to that 6-game losing streak, and it's like. Well, of course they were that bad in their own. Of course they were a disaster in their own end. They didn't have one of their most important defensive players, and so I think Hampus Lindholm deserves credit for getting back in the lineup and giving them a little bit of stability. Not saying it's been perfect, but I think the results are proof that he's making a real difference coming back in.
Yeah, and he was their best defenseman on Tuesday night. Plays over, I think, 26 minutes. It was most on the team. Had an assist, had one shot on goal. And it's funny, if you don't watch the game and you look at the box score, you're like, oh, he didn't really do much. But no, he was active. He was all
I,
over the place. His gaps
I,
were good.
I think that's what people do with Hampus
Yeah,
Lindholm. They just
yeah.
look at the box score.
Yeah, and they're like, what, -2 and 2 penalties and didn't have a hit. Like, this guy sucks. And it's like, well, no, like you gotta watch the games,
He's just
man.
a smart player. His details are good, and so you really do kind of have to watch him play to understand the
Yeah.
impact he can have.
And I
Right?
thought he was great. He was great in the overtime. If you catch the overtime and if you can find it online or rewatch it, whatever, he is on Matthew Schaefer for basically an entire shift. He is almost abandoning his spot as the D, and he's like, "No, I'm just going to keep Schaefer in front of me," and he did it for a good little while there. And you seen Schaefer, right? And man, what a talent already. The kid looks like
He's
Kale
gonna
McCarr out there. He's unbelievable.
he's gonna be
Um,
really good. Yeah.
but you see the way he can accelerate, the way that he can stop on a dime, pivot. Lindholm was hanging with him pretty much like that entire shift in overtime, and I thought it was really impressive. And really denied the Islanders what could have been a great scoring chance, or more than what they generated, right? And so Yeah, and to your point, Matt, I think now they're what? Now they're 6-1 with him in their lineup this season, Lindholm, that is. So
Mm-hmm.
you
Because
compare
that's
that
2-5 without him.
yeah, yeah, and so it is a difference, right? And I think what it really allows you to do, and we've talked about this before on the podcast. We've talked about this now for like 2 years now, really since Zadorov came in. The ability to mix and match your pairings, right? You can load up with McAvoy and Lindholm if you want. You can load up with Zadorov and McAvoy if you want. You can throw shifts out there where it's Lindholm opposite Yoki Haru or Lindholm opposite Peak. Like it just gives you so many different complexions you can throw out there situationally. Where a guy like Mason Lohrei, for example, like it feels like it's either top pairing or healthy scratch. Which like is not the best the best way to go about things there. And so I just feel like you look at where they are right now, and Lindholm, Zadorov, and McAvoy are the key to it, right? Goaltending is obviously a key, we'll all acknowledge that, but having those three upright and playing the way they're playing right now, like that's how you're going to win games if you're the Boston Bruins right now.
I think so, yeah. How do you feel about McAvoy lately? Because I know he got out to a bad start. I thought a very, very shaky start. But
Yeah,
maybe there's proof in how he's playing that they've started to win more.
I love Zadorov and McAvoy together. I think it's the best way to set up your defense right now. Two guys that play with a swagger and a intimidation factor. I think when they're out there together, he just looks like a different player playing with Zadorov. I don't know if it's more, you feel a little bit bigger because you got the 6'7" guy to your left.
I think that's it. Yeah.
Or if it's just you're free to take more chances, so to speak, than you would be when you're kind of babysitting Mason Lohrei. Not a knock
Like
on
I said,
Lohrei,
that's
but
more what I'm thinking. That
yeah,
second thing. Yeah.
yeah, and I think that there has been some sort of coded language here with Marco when it comes to his defense and how he views it. And speaking about Lohrei and McAvoy last week, he mentioned like those are two guys that they're doing the same thing too often. They both want to do the same thing, right? And so that kind of set off a little alarm in my head where it's like, oh, so he doesn't like that pairing because they're a little bit redundant in terms of what they want to do. And then the other day, after the Carolina game, Sturm is again talking about his defense. He's talking about McAvoy specifically. And he says, I've told my guys, you're not going to lead the rush. You can help the rush, but you're not going to lead the rush here. You got to worry about playing D first. And I think Zadorov and McAvoy, like the message to them is worry about D. Offense will come. And I think that's what you're seeing right now with those two guys.
Then why did they even have that pairing together to begin with? Like Lohrei Mac. Why
Yeah.
did they start with Zadorov and McAvoy? I don't understand why they did that in the first place.
I think you were giving Lohrei a chance to take that next step, prove that he can be that kind of guy for you. It's kind of funny, I think, because we've talked about this off the air, and we're bringing it on the air now. The way that people viewed Torrey Krug and Matt Grzelcyk is basically what Mason Lohrei actually is. Like, except he's 6'5" and not 5'9". Like he's not a super physical defender, right? And he's not gonna but here's the thing that makes Krug and even Grzelcyk, I think, a little bit different than Lohrei. Krug and Grzelcyk, because of their size, had to have this like tremendous attitude and physical compete. And I feel like with Mason, he's so big and he's been so big his whole life that he doesn't have to worry about he hasn't had to worry about the physicality part of it until now. Until now, where you're going against guys that are 6'2", 6'3", 220, and can put you through the boards. And so I feel like some of the problems and issues that fans had with Krug and Grzelcyk is more evident with Lohrei than it ever was with those two, if that makes sense. You know what I'm trying to say here right now?
Yes. Yeah, no, I think Krug was always, tough. He played physical when he could. Everyone knows that great hit he had in the 2019 Cup final. I just thought he was just limited by being so small and not particularly strong, that just a bigger, stronger forward can take advantage of him. It wasn't that he wasn't tough or that he doesn't know what he was doing out there. It's just I just thought there were limitations there. Like Lohrei doesn't have the physical limitations, and I think to your point, it's more mental with him. And I think he's still what, 23 years old? Like he's still very
Mhm.
young. You know how big I am on like how defensemen just need a lot of time to sort of get used to the game and get used to the league and the nuances and all that. For Lohrei, he needs to get used to the physical aspects of it. And so, like, maybe he never will, but I think, in due time, like, I think the more he gets used to it, the more he gets out there and starts to, actually feel that physicality, like, he'll get used to it and maybe he'll get a little bigger and stronger and, like, he'll toughen up and get a little, add like a layer of toughness just from the experience of it. And so I'm still
Yeah.
holding out hope that Lohrei will eventually figure that out, but, like, he's got a ways to go.
But
Keeping it on the,
in the now though, right? Like with a guy
yeah,
like Lohrei, like I think you're doing a disservice to him by basically saying you're either a top pairing guy or you're sitting. It's like, no, they should carve out a role for him where he's quarterbacking the top power play unit and playing third pairing. So he's still getting 16 minutes of action, 17 minutes of action some nights, but it's in a more sheltered role. It's in a more beneficial for each party kind of role. And again, bringing it back to Krug, like that's how the Bruins brought Krug into the mix. Krug broke in as a third pairing guy where he's quarterback in the power play. And then over time, they kind of steadily increased his role, his usage, his deployment. And then he was a full timer, I just don't think that not every defenseman is built to go from, okay, I played in college. Now I'm in the minors for 2 weeks and now I'm going to be a top pairing guy. Like the Bruins were very lucky to have Brandon Carlo come up and be a top 4 guy right away. They
yeah,
were very lucky to have Charlie McAvoy be a top pairing guy right away.
right. That's not the norm.
It's not the norm. It's just not. And again, this I think comes back to a separate conversation we've had, Matt, in the past about, when Matthew Poitras comes in and everyone's like, oh, you got to put him in the top 6 immediately. Oh, you got to put him on the top line immediately. It's because you haven't had like prospects and you're like, oh, he's got to be this guy because we need him to
Yeah,
be. It's like, well,
yeah, yeah.
no, hold on. He's not that guy. Like, you don't got to make him that guy. But I feel like perhaps the Bruins have been so starved for that offensive defenseman since Torrey Krug left that, the second round pick, Mason Lohrei, comes in. He has a great year at Ohio State. You bring him up. You're like, all right, he's got to be this guy now. And it's like, hold on. He's not that guy yet. Like, you can be patient, and the Bruins couldn't be patient for a long time. But, when you have Zadorov and you have Lindholm, like you in theory have a spot here where you can put Lohrei out there as a third pairing guy who gets a lot of power play minutes, offensive zone starts, and you're off to the races that way. It's just, I don't love the whole, it's either top pairing against the other team's best players or you're in the press box for 2 weeks. Like that's a weird way to like kind of, I don't know, carve his own path, carve his path for him, I should say.
Yeah, maybe find a middle ground, right? That you probably figure that out with this guy that you drafted in the second round of, you've already invested all this time in with him. So like maybe find a middle ground there. Keeping it on the defense though, Ty. I do like the guy that's been going in the lineup with Lohrei sitting out, Jonathan Aspirot, who's for me he's kind of come out of nowhere. I'm not an expert on Bruins minor leaguers or their lower level players. But I really like what I've said. I thought he was good last night. I just think he makes good decisions with the puck. His breakouts were good. It just feels like he feels like he's in control, especially when he had the puck. And it just feels like he's aggressive. He's not afraid to like pinch up and stick his nose in there. But it feels like he never, unless I miss something, it doesn't feel like he ever really like blew his assignment or anything like that. It doesn't feel like he's a dangerous player to have out there. I feel like he's been relatively solid. And so like I'm not saying he's anything more than maybe a third pairing defenseman, replacement defenseman, but
Mhm.
I just think he deserves credit because he's gone into the lineup and taken full advantage of the opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, this is a player who I feel like if you've watched the LA Kings in recent years, like they would bring up a guy from their minor leagues who kind of played like this, right? Closes fast, doesn't take a lot of chances, but when he gets the puck on his stick, like he's making quick decisions with it. Um, I liked him in the preseason because he shot the puck, and I didn't think they had enough guys that were shooting the puck from the back end. So
Yeah,
I
sorry to cut you off, but like
yeah,
just
no,
the quick decisions and like the
yeah.
confidence, and just feels like he's in control while making quick decisions. That's what I like about him.
Yeah, there's no hesitation, right? I mean, you got
Yeah,
to be kind of full send, I think, as a defenseman. I think especially in this system, right? Like this system wants you to close on guys quickly. They want you to close higher than you would typically, right? Like they want like as soon as you gain the blue, they want you jumping up and trying to snuff it out, right?
Yeah.
And it can lead to some aggressive sort of play and some pretty glaring mistakes at times. But to be a defenseman, I think in the system you have to have supreme confidence. Like you can't second guess yourself on a decision before you make it, right? And I think that's why a guy like Aspirot and even a guy like Jordan Harris, like, are they the best defenseman? No, but they're confident in their actions. They're confident with their movement. And I think that's how you can really thrive in the system, is that if you're just feeling it, like in you're just playing again with pace, with energy, with quickness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think that's what Sturm wants out of this team, to prevent those shifts where they are, hemmed in their own zone for a minute and 10 seconds or whatever, or taking a bad penalty because, they're reaching and they're not arriving on time, right? That's this term that
Mm-hmm.
Bruce Cassidy would always use, arriving on time. Like, no, I think Aspero has been very good in terms of arriving on time, making confident decisions, and snuffing the play out and pushing it the other way. Like that's what Sturm wants, like, to a T.
Yeah, no, I think Sturm's happy. Yeah, I'm happy. You're happy. Everyone's happy with Jonathan Aspirot so far. We'll see how that holds up. Okay, so now let's switch gears to the forward groups. Elias Lindholm's been out. Do you have anything? Have you heard anything? I don't know what you've heard. It's okay if you haven't heard anything, but like, what's your read on that whole injury situation?
Yeah, I can tell you that the Bruins, and Sturm said this as much, the MRI told them what the Bruins thought it was. Now, what I've heard is the Bruins are not overly worried about this. They were hopeful for, say, 2 to 3 weeks, but they realized that it's probably more likely 3 to 4 weeks. So it's happened less than a week ago now. Tomorrow will be a week. So you have some time here, but they are not looking at this, based on people I've talked to. They're not looking at this like something that's going to derail the season. Now, at the same time, and this is my own comment on it, not anything they've told me, a year ago, Elias Lindholm had a back injury in training camp, and it really, really messed him up upon his return. He had a slow start. He didn't look like himself. He didn't feel like himself until the second half of the season after the Four Nations faceoff break. So if he's going to miss a month, let's just say, you got to hope that when he comes back, he's not that version of Elias Lindholm you saw a year ago, where the confidence was gone. Physically, he felt like he missed too much time or wasn't himself for too long, and his confidence went out the window. Like, you hope that he can come right back in and continue producing at the pace he was prior to the injury, because he's been an effective player for them. The faceoffs were, I believe, the fifth best in the NHL at the time of the injury. The power play production was fantastic. So you really hope that when he does come back, it's not, a month of them trying to regain his confidence or regain his footing. That's what I
Right.
worry about more than the injury itself.
Yeah, no, like, you got to hope that he comes back relatively quickly. You get to U.S. Thanksgiving, which is the classic line of demarcation, and they're still afloat. They're at least in a wild card spot, and Lindholm comes back. He's 100%. He gets right back to it. He hits the ground running. Like, that's going to be something that we're just going to have to watch over the next couple months. But the main beneficiary of Elias Lindholm's injury has been Marat Khusnutdinov, who, I don't know if you were surprised to see him get elevated to the top line, when Lindholm couldn't play. But I feel like he's taken full advantage of the opportunity. He had the game tying goal last night, and the shootout goal. I think it's two goals in his last 3 games now, and
Yes.
so he scored the OT winner against Buffalo, and so he's been coming through for him. And, like, look, this is a guy that we said all offseason, like, he's going to be part of the NHL club. He's going to make some kind of impact. We were thinking maybe middle six, maybe third line would be perfect for him. He's a little small to be playing center, but I think he's a good, smart player. I think he skates a little better than Elias Lindholm at this stage of Lindholm's career. He's a good, responsible defensive forward, especially for a young guy. But if he could start scoring, like if he could start actually putting the puck in the net, like he could give him some real value. And so, like, I like what I've seen from him lately. What have you thought of Hustinov's game?
Yeah, I like how they're utilizing him. I feel like playing him on the fourth line, while fine in theory, is a little bit of the same problem that Minnesota ran into with him, which is he's probably too good for that role. He's probably got more offensive chops than you're going to see in a fourth line role, and I think that has been the case as clearly as we've seen. Not only has he scored the last two games, but he got a little bit of a run with Pasternak in Utah in that game, and he had an assist on a Pasternak goal. Like I think he's got better vision and creativity with the puck on his stick than perhaps you'd realize
Yeah.
if you only
Sneaky.
utilize him in a fourth line role, and he can skate really well. And so
Yeah.
I think that I was talking with Sophia Yerkstovich and Casey Hudson of Nesson on their
Yes, I
podcast
saw
the
that
other day,
show and I said I got jealous. I was like, I want to do a show with Ty. Let me do a show with Ty.
and here we
And
are.
so
And then your
thanks to them
microphone
for
was like,
allowing me.
actually, no.
Yeah, thanks to Sophia for cutting my mic. But yeah,
No,
no,
but
here we are.
but I was kind of saying to them about Khusnutdinov, like he has a chance to be found money for you, right? And how often do you get that chance as an NHL franchise to grab a player that you don't have ties to in the sense that he wasn't your second round pick, right? He's not your player that you're desperately trying to carve out a role for. Like, no, you acquired him, and now you get last season and you get all of this season to figure out what he is and what he can be for your team, right? And you look at this roster, you look at this team, and it's like, all right, Geeky's good, Pasternak is good, Lindholm is good, Zach is good, but beyond that, what do you have locked in long term? And so you have opportunity here for a guy to become a third line assassin or a second line speedster or a first line plug-in. Like you got minutes and you got openings, right? And so when you acquire a player like Khusnutdinov, it is so important to find out if that guy can be something for your team. And if he's not, at least you tried every option. You're like, hey, we played him the top line, didn't play well. We played him the second line, didn't play well. Like it's such a great opportunity for an NHL team to basically find out if this guy's a player or not. It's similar to Morgan Geeky. I'm not saying that Khusnutdinov's going to be a 30-goal guy and play on the top line forever, but Geeky was found money. It was a low risk signing. They said, hey, no, trust us. You just got to give him ice time. He'll be good. And everyone's like, okay. And sure enough, they were right, and so, when we watch the Florida Panthers, right? And we're like, damn, man, they got so many weapons, right? You forget about Eetu Luostarinen, who was like a fourth round pick by Carolina that ended up in Florida. You forget about Evan Rodriguez, who kind of just toiled around for a little while before going to Florida. Like you forget about Jesper Boquist, who had a cup of coffee here in Boston, as we all know, but has been playing elevated role up there. Like that's equally as important as the high-end talent. Finding guys that didn't fit in other cities, but you bring them in and they're great for you. Like that's a sneaky, great way of rebuilding your team on the fly.
Yeah, absolutely. No, look, I think they'd had a great deadline last year, in terms of getting value for all those guys that they traded off. And I don't know that all the guys they got are going to work out in the long term, but Khusnutdinov feels like a long term fit. I don't know. We'll see how it goes for him. I don't know if he's not going to be like a top line guy throughout the season. Elias Lindholm comes back, probably goes right back into that top spot. But I don't know. I feel like Khusnutdinov is starting to prove himself as at least a middle six guy. So we'll say,
Yeah.
especially if he keeps scoring.
I mean, like, this might be a bad comparison because, like, these players had incredible careers, obviously, but, like, when I watch Khusnutdinov, I'm reminded a little bit of like Carl Hagelin and like Matt Zuccarello, where these guys were just like
Oh yeah,
they were little, right? And they weren't the biggest or the strongest, but they were just all over the ice and they were so quick. And you're like, God, I forgot about this guy. Like can he carve out a career like that? Where Zuccarello, really broke in as a third liner, ultimately worked his way up to being like a first line player for a couple of years there. But like those guys have value, that those 5'9", 5'10" speedster guys that can play center, can play both wings, can basically do whatever you ask out of them. Like, you can carve out a pretty solid career, as long as the wheels are still there and the vision is still there. And, I feel like the Bruins are now scratching the surface of the offensive skill set of a guy like Marat Khusnutdinov.
sure. Yeah. And I don't want to say he'll never be like he could be a top line guy if he has guys that complement him, like a bigger centerman, something like that. So yeah, we'll see how good it's going well for him so far. Have we talked about? No, we haven't talked about. I mentioned Swayman earlier, but
Mm-hmm.
so Corpusal gets 2 starts in a row after Swayman gives up a 7 or whatever it was in Ottawa, and they lost 7-2. He goes back in, really good against Carolina. Last night, a little shaky, but then closed strong. They come back, they win. He's good in the shootout, and so it's a classic Swayman kind of night. Felt like a Tuukka Rask throwback, like not a perfect night, but he came through, and then people can nitpick it and say you shouldn't have given up this goal or that goal. Just what have you seen from Swayman the last couple games ever since he basically sat for a night? It felt like because he missed Corpusal get 2 starts in a row there. It felt like it lit a fire under him, and I know that he wasn't perfect last night, and I don't know if that's going to qualify as the start of like a hot streak or anything, but just what have you seen from Swayman the last couple games?
Poised, battling. I think perhaps not the cleanest games, but he is tracking the puck well. And I'm not a big, listen, every goal that a goalie gives up, they're gonna want it back, right? I didn't love the Horvat goal that made it 3-2 New York, but he finishes strong, and that's what's most important. Timely saves are more important than gaudy save total numbers, right? Like if you stop 38 of 42, but you give up 4 goals in the final 4 shots you face, you lose the game. I don't really care about your 38 for 42. I
Right.
care about how you finish. I care about the ending. And after that Horvat goal, he makes 8 straight saves. He stops all 3 guys in the shootout. There was a great Schaefer look in overtime. There was a great Emil Henneman look in regulation that he kept out of the net. I want to say Barzell had a look too. I think in the final 2 minutes or so of the game. So like these that matters to me, right? I don't care about the totals. I care about when they happen, right? And this is what's been interesting about this team, right? Like me, I love to track a lot of stats and a lot of numbers and what have you. Neither Bruins goaltender this year has been particularly great from a pure numbers standpoint in the third periods of games. Entering last night, the best save percentage by period for the Boston Bruins for both goaltenders was Jeremy Swayman in the second period of games, had a 935. Other than that, though, no Bruins goaltender had a save percentage above 900 total for the periods. First period, Swayman had an 892. Third period, Swayman had an 854. Jonas Korpisalo's first periods were 887. His seconds were 877. His thirds were 875. Now, you look at those numbers, Matt, and you think, oh, they've been bad. I think they've been good. You know what? Like, and this is what's weird about analyzing things by the numbers. Like, timely saves are more important than total number of saves. And I feel like the Bruins right now are getting timely goaltending from both Swayman and Korpisalo. They're big when they need to be. They rebound when they give a shitty goal, and they've been value add, in my opinion, most nights. I thought Swayman didn't have a great game in the beginning, finished strong. That's what's most important. That's what I want to see out of my goaltender.
Yeah, I think honestly, not even just the goaltender, but the forwards, the way they've been able to score in clutch situations and come back when they're down. Like, I think that's what's kind of stood out about the team throughout the season so far, even when they were losing. They've shown resilience. They've come back, and the goalies have sort of kept them in it in those critical situations when they need to come back. And so, I feel like their resilience in the fight. I feel like that's what Sturm can really hang his hat on so far. Even though the overall results have been so, they're 8-7, and they're giving up too many goals according to what they want to do. But
Mm-hmm.
I think the compete and the fight they showed, like they have to have that because they don't have the talent to just coast on talent.
Yeah, and I would also add that look at Swayman's game against Carolina. It takes a 6-on-5 delayed penalty for the Hurricanes to score on him, right? Look at Korpisalo, allows 2 goals in the first 3 shots he faces against Islanders, and then rallies for 32 or 33 straight saves. Like it's timely, right? Look at even Swayman on Long Island on Tuesday night. One of the goals is a brutal neutral zone giveaway by Morgan Geekie. That's a 2-on-1 for Matt Barzell and Bo Horvat. 2 guys I'd rather not give a 2-on-1 to if I can help it personally. And then even, the third goal, which again, we acknowledge is a bad goal. It comes right as a penalty expires for the Islanders. They hit Schaefer right out of the box, and he finds Horvat for a shot. And there's almost no defense from the Boston Bruins along the way. And so, I just feel like, it's taken an awful lot to beat the goaltenders right now for the Boston Bruins, which is a good sign for them. Even going back to the Korpisalo game against the Islanders last week, Lindholm jumps up into the play. I think it was the first Islander goal. Lindholm jumps up, and now David Pastrnak is the last line of defense for the Boston Bruins, skating backwards. You don't want that. Pastrnak doesn't want that. He said it after the game. He goes, "Why is he making me skate backwards? I don't want to do that. I'm not good at that." He acknowledged it.
Can't have it. Should never have it.
So I have to look at the total scope of things for the Bruins right now, and I feel like their goalies are battling, to your point, and they're giving them something every night. I think the only night that the goaltenders, there's only been 2 nights where the goaltenders, I think, have just not been up to task. And it's been the game against the Lightning at home on Columbus Day. I just felt like Korpisalo, he was okay, but he didn't make a difference for you like you need him to in that game. And then the game in Ottawa, I just feel like it was non-competitive. So you've had 2 non-competitive games out of 15, in net. That's gonna happen, and so I'll take their current ratio. Their ratio right now over the alternative of last year, which was you were averaging a clunker a week. It felt like.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, I think they're overall, maybe a little bit better than the totality of last year.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe need to be a little bit better overall, but look, the fact that they're competing and they're sort of starting to round into form a little bit now that they've won 5 out of 6. It feels like they've just at least stabilized a little bit. So, don't lose 6 in a row again, and then we come back here next episode and it's like, well, so much for all that. Hopefully it doesn't all go poof. Hopefully they just remain stable and they remain competitive. Is all I can really hope for.
And this is something too that the Bruins, I think, have to work on. So you know me, a big fan of looking at the numbers and what have you. And I've noticed that when the Bruins get the lead, they for whatever reason, when they get the lead, they start playing really fast and loose for 5 minutes after the lead. I don't know why. I can't figure it out. But whenever they have a lead, they start playing like they're up by 6. And it's like, whoa, hold on here, guys. And so I looked up the numbers here. When the Bruins are leading this year, out of all 32 teams in the NHL, when the Bruins are leading, they are surrendering the second most expected goals against per 60 when leading, 4.27 per 60. They're surrendering the third most scoring chances against while leading per 60. High danger chances, they're surrendering the 6th most while leading. You got to tighten that up. We talked about that with this team, right? They want to be the LA Kings. The LA Kings were really good at basically being a boa constrictor and choking a team out when they had the lead.
That's what I thought they were going to do. If they got a lead, if they get a lead, they just sit on it. They tighten it up, they slow it down. That's what I thought they were going to do when they get the lead.
So that part's going to get better. And you feel like that part can get better once Sturm realizes, who his guys are in that moment, what his pairings can be. They get more practice time. They understand the system more. But that's one thing that's been sticking out to me is that when they score a goal and when they're leading, there's a 5-minute window after they score where they're just, it's Keystone Cops. And you're like, what is happening right now? This shouldn't be happening. So they got to address that.
So hopefully they do address that, because that could be that's one way to reduce your goals against, to actually tighten things up after taking the lead and just sit on it. Okay, well that does it for this week's podcast. I think we've exhausted the current Bruins topics. Do you have any closing thoughts for us today, Tab, before I let you go?
Curious to see how they come out on Thursday night. It's a rematch against Ottawa. Ottawa embarrassed them 7-2 when these teams last met. So I feel like that's probably that's gonna be a good test for this team's emotional connectivity. I think emotionally they're very invested right now, which I think winning naturally can do that for you. But I just feel like there's another level last night. Like on Tuesday night, Scott Mayfield hits Morgan Geekie, totally clean hit, totally clean. But Tanner Jeannot comes calling and is like, hey, don't do that. Like, do that again. I'm coming after you. Like, I like that, right? Like I was complaining about that to you after the Florida game where I didn't see the emotional, lift that those guys are supposed to give you. And so I think that's there now. And you want it to be there. The Bruins all wanted to go after Jordan Greenway after the collision with Elias Lindholm.
Yep.
Accidental, but Sturm said that he had multiple guys on the team go up to him and be like, "Hey, can I go try to fight him now?" And he's like, "Yeah, go for it." Like it
I
feels
just love
like
that no other sport does a conversation like that. Can
right,
I go beat this guy up?
right.
Yes, sure. Be
But
home by 7 o'clock.
I feel like they're emotionally their engagement is where it needs to be for them to make up some of their talent deficiencies or their goal scoring deficiencies. Like if that buy-in's there, and Sturm has talked about the buy-in, feeling like it's there now for this team. They're going to be a better team. They're going to be a harder out. Which is going back to what Cam and Don said. We want to be a harder out. I feel like that element we're starting to kind of finally see what it actually looks like for this team.
Absolutely. Slowly but surely feels like it's starting to kind of come together. It hasn't been perfect. Still things to work on, but the 5 wins in 6 games is what it is. And they also have the home and home with Toronto coming up soon. And so that'll be a good litmus test for, I think, both those teams. So it's going to be interesting to watch going forward. All right. Well, thanks. If you made it this far, thanks. I love you. I'm Matt Dolloff. He's Ty Anderson. This is the Sports Hub Underground. I appreciate the patience of anybody that sat through me talking, ranting to nobody on a speakerphone with Ty's wonderful microphone sounded good. I'm going to see if I can fix my own microphone going forward, and we'll get some better audio quality for you on the next episode. But, you can always come to us for Bruins talk, and we're going to keep talking Bruins throughout the season, no matter how up or down that season gets. And that's what we want to provide to you. So thanks for listening, folks. We'll talk to you again soon.